Another glorious day for us to reconnect, share, and build. Today is day 7. We've reached a full week of these videos, daily check-ins, state of being. It's your boy Zoe Black. Thank y'all. Thank you to anyone who's attended any one of these days thus far. We got our first week completed. We showed up for ourselves, which is the most important thing. We showed up for ourselves first. But secondly, we keeping a level of consistency that's important for the community. You know what I'm saying? So thank y'all. Thank y'all for joining in. We are 7 days in, and seven is a special number, considering and bringing light and changing cultures. I call my audience or the supporters stars, and our logo is the seven rays, which is representative of the seven pillars to successfully rebuilding the culture. So we'll go further into depths about the logistics behind that. I mean, why we decided to make the decision to seven rays and so on and so forth. But we're just thankful for today and being in this moment. So let's get right into it. As always, we start with the reset breath. This is a moment for us to release all the things that are holding us back and be ever so present for the moment and reflect on what we've gotten through, and where we're headed. So, as always, start with an inhalation. Well, start with inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. Yeah, we're gonna reset. It's beautiful. Today's topic is focus. I found myself. I found myself struggling with focus. Right, we live in a world with a lot of distractions. Um, I am one to allow distractions to get in the way if it's not controlled. So I have to be cautious about my environment and certain things that I do in order for me to have a certain level of focus. You know, um, I'm someone who's struggled with substance abuse for a very long time in my life. And with that said, a lot of times when you're ambitious and you have like really big goals, it's really easy for you to get derailed because of small distractions. And if you don't really take into account how debilitating those distractions are, you can find yourself in like a really bad space and lose a lot of time just from a lack of focus. So today I'm gonna set my intentions, and if you're out there, you should set your intentions as well. Today, I'm only gonna concentrate on the things that matter to my higher purpose. If if there's anything that I know don't align with where I want to go and where I'm headed and who I want to become, today I'm going to cut it off just for this 24 hours. Whether it be the podcast I'm watching, whether it be the kind of, just however I engage with content. I want those things to be in alignment with where I'm headed and even the things that I'm reading, right? Spending a little bit more time on and personal improvement, but also understanding the world in a better place. I am grateful for the ability to tune in and tap into a level of focus because so many of us are caught up in like these loops. I know I used to get caught up in this loop where I was comfortable with the things that I did on a day to day basis. And that in itself became debilitating because a lot of those things were hampering. Like, I used to smoke weed every day. And I thought that I had control over my like circumstances under the influence. But the more and more that I kind of like sunk deeper into that space of substance abuse, it became like I was losing sight on what like my bigger picture was. I was just like losing sight of my reality. It was almost like the only thing that mattered was me enjoying the high. I'm grateful for the ability to even be able to like see that and remove myself from it because like a lot of my peers struggle with even seeing that as a negative reality. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not one to judge anyone who does what they do, as long as it doesn't have a level of control over you. Because that's my biggest thing is sometimes these things will have a level of control over me that I may not be honest with. I may not be comfortable being honest with myself about. You feel what I'm saying? Um, what I will say is it's imperative. It's imperative that you lean into a level of focus for anything that you do. You know, even if you are in school, you got to think about how much focus is required for you to, matriculate through the process. Like I was in college and I graduated and I'm grateful, but it did require a lot of focus because a lot of my peers wanted to go hang out. You know, I had to do a paper and I was adamant on getting good grades. Like I was just like, I ain't spending all this money for me to come here and like mess this up. You know what I'm saying? Like I was like I went to college on my own. Like my mama and daddy ain't send me to school. I was working and I said, I'm gonna go back to school. So like doing that, it became like I had to rely on myself and rely on my own passion about just getting better in life. So when I was doing that, it required a level of focus to not allow the circuit, like my environment, to derail me from the end all be all goal. Even as a musician, you can imagine there's so many different distractions when it comes to like producing music. You look at the culture of the music industry. People say you got to make music like this. You gotta you gotta create a sound like this. You gotta do it like this. You gotta move like this, or you gotta talk like this, or you gotta do all of these things that don't necessarily fall in line with what's on your heart. So, do you have a level of focus to kind of push through that? Because that's also something that a lot of people are, like myself, I struggled with, and I wish I had like like I have good people around me. Don't get me wrong, I have good people around me to help me stay focused, but you know, I wish it was a little bit closer. Like I wish my mom and daddy was real hard on me at sometimes. You know what I'm saying? But they weren't. But so fortunately, I do have good people around me. But then it becomes your own discipline of are you willing to make the sacrifices to be focused on the things that are important to you? So I say all that to say, nobody's really going to come to save you at the end of the day. If you're clear on what you want, if you're clear on where you're headed, then you got to put forth the effort to focus on the things that are important and really be honest with yourself, because that's where it becomes about accountability and being a truth teller to oneself. You know, I used to tell myself all the time, like, a lot of people may lie to me, but I ain't gonna lie to myself. If I'm struggling with something, at least internally, you'll feel it, and I can't lie to myself then. If I'm not like happy with something, and somebody else may act like it's a beautiful environment, I'm not gonna lie to myself. So when you don't lie to yourself and you know where you're going and you're really clear on that, your focus has to be on the things that can either get you out of that circumstance or focus on like where like really where you want to go. A lot of times like a lot of these things sound so cliche, but the reality of it is that it wouldn't the cliche don't come from nowhere. You know what I'm saying? We all are understanding of like the level of focus that's required to like break through strongholds, to break through any type of family hindrances. That's a real reality. You see what I'm saying? So, um, with that said, we're going to have a closing statement, right? Hold on one second. I got family upstairs. They I don't know if they want to come and join in, but you know what I'm saying. I hear something going on, but that's neither here nor there. All right. Let me get to some of these comments though before we get into the closing statements. Hold on. All right. AG, you a king, and God loves you. Just remember that. Much love, man. Appreciate you. 405 Black Ice 8. Love the stream. Just quickly, any tips on how I can get my dad to stop getting super jealous every time my sister not sleep? Okay, crazy. What field did you graduate from? I graduated with a communications degree from Bowie State University here in Maryland. Yeah, I had a great tenure there. Super appreciative of my experiences. As I mentioned before, like even going to a HBCU, there's a lot of distractions there too. So I was just grateful that I was able to stay focused. And like one thing about me, it was always about the bigger picture in any environment. I wasn't afraid to be the one who I wanted to like retain the information and be really good at the things that I was doing. So when I was in school, I was super focused on, being a good student, showing up on time, and doing my work to the best of my ability. And like anybody else, I had shortcomings. I struggle with substances, as I mentioned before. But at the end of the day, it really ain't slow me down from the end all be all. And I think I had to like cut a lot of things out in order for me to get ahead. So I'm grateful for my ability to do that. But I will say that the most, like, without that focus, I'm not sure that I would have made it through and graduated the way that I did. So I'm grateful for my ability to do so. And if you in a chat, or if you're watching this afterwards, put something in the comments. Let me know, what you focused on for today. Let me know what you had to overcome in order to remain focused. Because as always, when you share your comments, when you share your testimony, somebody else is going to hear it, and they're also going to be inspired and motivated by that as well. All right. So as always, with our closing statements, take today to find one thing that you can remain 100% focused on. All right. And with that said, continue to progress and push forward. Shout out to everybody here bringing light and change your cultures. Shout out to everybody in the Black universe, all the stars worldwide. Thank y'all for showing up, showing out as always. It's your boy Zoe Black checking out. And like I said, use today to shift your focus to something that matters to you. All right. Y'all continue to shine on.